Thank you for staying with us. The British government has announced an increase of 34.9% in student visa for international students, including those from Nigeria. The new fee takes effect from October the 4th. According to the UK government, the increase will go into financing essential services and providing more funds for public sector pay increases. The fee increase also applies to students requesting visas from outside the UK. They are to pay an additional £127 to match up the £490 charged for in-country applications. This is bad news for Nigerian students who have made the UK a top immigration destination. Well, joining us via Zoom is an international affairs analyst, Gbenga Onifade. Gbenga, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now, there are those who say this is perhaps bad news for Nigerian students and perhaps may deter them from looking at the UK as a destination of choice. But I wonder if you see it as that.
Well, first, thanks for having me. It's quite uncertain or unfortunate, with the hike that we have seen in Nigeria. But of course, you've got to understand the UK have got to take advantage of the demand, even though we've just had a change in government, but we haven't actually seen, or the studies haven't actually shown there's a stall in the number of applications. So I think you should expect the obvious, which is a hike, really. And of course, the government they do have a target, it's an unwritten rule. And once they've got their targets, at that point, they're not going to totally just say no to people. But we're going to hike the price now. But at the same time, whoever wants in, they can come in, but at their own expense. So how do Nigerians perceive this? But I think generally the notion which I have seen, there's no actual data because actually it's still very recent. And there's no actual data, but the majority of the consensus is that we will still we will still come in. That's what they're still saying. So while a lot are disappointed, but I think what it does is actually just stalled or delayed a bit, the journey a little bit for for a lot of Nigerians who are still willing to come. And so it's quite unfortunate this has been that the hike has happened, but the general consensus is that yes, it's still quite positive. I'll still rather leave my fatherland, if I can say, to the UK.
Interesting. But then I understand that post-COVID, the United Kingdom really is aggressive when it comes to raising money, making money for the country, looking for revenue one way or the other. Is it part of that drive, drives rather, to shore up their revenue, or is it that they want to reduce the number of immigrants into their country?
Oh no, we've got to be silly if we're thinking it's all about immigration. Right from the days of, we talking about the days of, even before Tony Blair, we've got Margaret Thatcher, John Major, Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, David Cameron, Theresa May, and right now Rishi Sunak. Immigration has actually never actually dipped. I think he only dipped one time. Then they were quite aggressive, but then it just went back up. So immigration has always been on the record, really. So it kind of seems to, why the population are, because the government's quite stretched, but at the same time, the population, they're quite aggrieved and they keep talking about, no, we need to say no to immigration. You need to cut it down. Okay, even if we're not actually saying, let's make it legal. And even though they might tell you that's what they want to do. That's what the government will tell you what you want to hear. And no matter how, the country is still very much attractive, unfortunately, because of the way our country is being run, Nigeria. So while you might think in their hearts they want it down, but at the end of the day, post-COVID, like you said as well, UK is actually in a mess, according to Tony Blair a few days ago in the Financial Times. So yes, they do not want to cut it down because a lot of people did not return to work, and we had quite a lot of people who got comfortable, and there's still this, UK left the European Union. So we have all these low-skilled or low-paid jobs, which you're working in a very extreme condition, and again, much reward, and they need some people to fill these gaps or this holes. It used to be the European Union people, but they've all nationals, they've all gone back to their countries right now, and now you need to depend on the countries, and especially, we do have this exchange rate, which actually favored the people from lower earning countries. And the minimum wage here, a lot of people tend to have that notion. They still have the stigma of just converting it to what they earn in their base currency. So it kind of makes it very much attractive. So I think it's a lot more politics. I don't think yes, they might seem like they want to cut down immigration, but you got the fruit pickers, you got the care route. They need to look after it. And one of the most important thing, which I should actually mention, a few years ago, that was the times that Theresa May, she actually did decide to cut down on immigration. There was a ban on, you study, you go straight back to your country. And unfortunately, at that time, the people decided to make I think UK, you got to understand, education is also a business. People come here to the UK, but UK started to seem a lot less attractive compared to, the likes of Canada, Australia, United States, for which, Boris Johnson has actually seen, well, I think it's an opportunity to show up the revenue generating machine all over again, and decided, okay, we're going to have you stay for, for another 2 years. We can't call it the post-study visa, which you will get once you're done with your study. And all of a sudden, again, it started booming all over again. So yes, UK is always going to be attractive. There's a lot more politics, and of course, revenue generation. It's not about how this government love you. No, it doesn't work that way.
Right. Interesting. You talked about they taking advantage of this measure, as well as also the matter of immigration. We recall at some point the Home Office came out raising an alarm on the number of persons, number of immigrants that were present in the country. And I am wondering if you think that they have a successful measure at cutting down on immigrants, if they have been successful, and if this will be a successful measure to cutting down on immigrants, because we see what is going on across the countries of Africa, where there's been some level of political instability, there's so many issues going on, wars and all of that. Do you think that the UK will be able to successfully cut down on the number of immigrants since it's become a choice destination?
That's a very difficult question. It's a chicken and egg, really. You've got to think which comes first. Now, we've got a Nigerian population of roughly, in Nigeria, 200 million, as at 1998. Sorry, 2008, apologize. So the present, people who declare themselves Nigerian are 178,000. Nigeria is the largest, which is the largest increase from 90,000 Nigerian nationals between 2008. So we're talking about from 2008 to 2021, we have Nigeria's ballooned from 90,000 to 178,000. One of the other key questions people tend to always ask me is, God forbid, if there's a war in Nigeria, which country can take us? So we cannot afford instability in Nigeria. That's number one. Number two, as well, can they cut this down? Of course they can. There's always been outcry of, stop the boats. And immigration is an age-old dictum. It would always happen. We can unfortunately stop that. But, now we're talking about, I think, 0.5%, just about less than 1% of the population in the United Kingdom is Nigeria. Okay, and we're talking about, we're talking close to 500,000 or quarter of a million people. So can they successfully cut it down? Yes, they can. However, with the hike, that's one of the deterrents. What you have to do is stop gaps or red tapes around cutting these things down. I mean, when I came here 25 years ago, there was nothing like, paying the health surcharge, which has now been implemented. And you have to understand, once this thing is implemented, it keeps going up. So you have to start paying for it. I think there was a symposium where the Prime Minister was there a couple of months ago when he mentioned that immigrants, you will have to pay for every step of the road, every step of the way. But if you think about it also, there has been, recently more offices, opened in Nigeria. I think one has recently opened in Enugu, saying, okay, we've got these Eastern people or Eastern brothers and sisters who are not able to reach Lagos, and they want to come to the UK. Of course, you can come in there, but of course, it doesn't come for free. Education's been going up. Also, we're talking about I think you've got to take the language exams, which is English, which a lot of Nigerians have been fighting, saying, we speak English naturally. Why do we still have to take the test? But at the same time, again, that's been going up. So inflation's been going all around here. But again, it's a revenue generating scheme. You've got to take advantage of it. In a way, you could say it's a signal to our people. You've got to look after your country. If you don't look after your country, but unfortunately, the I'm not going to call it the tricks, but you can call it the tricks. The finance, the scheme is there. We will take advantage of it, unfortunately. And there are other countries who are, ready to implement this. And then again, should we say Nigerians are actually being sold the lies by the fellow Nigerians? They think, you want to go up there, your life will change. And of course, a lot's changed for a lot of people in the good way. And they just thought that's the norm. Well, I'm just going to go. A lot of people tend to preach this thing also to Nigerians. You don't want to just go there. It's not, the streets of London is not paved with gold. But they say, I want to go and see it for myself if it isn't or if it is. But there you go. So the market is there, the demand is there, and of course, someone is going to take it up. If the United Kingdom don't do it, another country will do.
Interesting, Gbenga. And I see that, the fact that you spoke to the fact that, Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians, when they talk about the Japa, they want to go to the United Kingdom, they want to go to other country. But then, I'm not sure whether you remember of a Nigerian who was interviewed on the BBC, exposing, as Nigerians allege, exposing Nigerians who are traveling abroad under the guise of student visa, but the intention is to, Japa, so to speak. Do you feel that the British government is taking this very seriously, especially against Nigerians, in terms of reducing the number of, immigrants into the United Kingdom?
It's quite. I mean, I did listen to the interview with a fellow through the BBC, and I've actually watched it a few times as well. So while I think he's a lot of Nigerians said it didn't speak for them, which is quite all right. And I think so I'm just trying to go back to your question now. Apologize, sorry. So the question is that what I think of the notion? I think a lot of Nigerians definitely want to go and study. There's always going to be a few bad eggs, which is quite a shame, really. A lot of Nigerians do want to study, but what I think the same way I came in here 25 years ago, I was a student, as a secondary school student of the university and etc. Paid my dues. So what I've got to say is that, yes, quite a lot of Nigerians want to study, but what a lot of Nigerians also say is, if I will have to go abroad and go and study, and I'm going to make my life over there, then it gets very difficult to be able to fit back home. And especially some of them even come with the dependents. How will they fit back home? They've got the children. The children are used to the new climate. They've paid their dues. Well, one of the things you have to understand is when people come in here to work, they have no access to public funds. They're paying taxes. So I think it's quite unfortunate. You are wasting a part of your life here, and you're going to go back home. You cannot claim for anything. That's a part of your life lost. So I think a lot of Nigerians are very sincere. They work very hard. I've spoken to quite a few of my friends here as well who, recently just came in here. And one thing I've always told them, and which is quite a common phrase, is that you've got to pay your dues. You've got to pay your dues. So when they come in here, they've got to pay their dues. A lot of them want to come in here to do the right thing, to study. And of course, they want to make it their home because they've built relationships. The children's actually been forming new backgrounds. So I don't think they have ulterior motives. I believe a lot of them want to study, and it becomes very difficult. When you come in here, you get a 3-year visa. Okay, after your study, gain some experience. 5 years. 5 years is a big chunk of people's lives. For then me asking to go back now, a lot of these relationships have been lost. Some of your friends have found on to find new mates. So you want to go back and fit in Nigeria again. And then, of course, plus what you are reading. Now you're used to new governance schemes, new ways. So, yes, the Japa syndrome is always going to be a syndrome. I think I've read about our fathers talking about it. I can't remember what they were calling in the 70s. So this thing is always going to be a wave. And there was a time, I think a lot of British nationals were actually moving to Dubai. This wave happens all the time. So yes, a lot of Nigerians want to study. They want to make it a new home, and they want to contribute and be a part of the citizenry. And it does actually help. One thing we need to always talk about is the fact that while people come in here, we have a lot of remissions going back home as well. And that's something that's not often talked about. So it's a wash my back, I wash your back kind of approach. So the syndrome, it's a win-win for both sides, Nigeria. And but one of the key disadvantage, unfortunately, is the brain drain. I think while Nigeria trains as many doctors as required, but most of them tend to leave the shores of Nigeria. Maybe we need to start looking inward and think, okay, how well do we? There's a message in there somewhere. How do we start treating? It's not just doctors or lawyers. As recently as possible, Canada was even looking for carpenters. So some of these menial jobs, we need to start taking advantage of them, looking at them, treat them very well. We have plumbers. I was talking to a few of my colleagues talking about how you as a plumber or people as plumbers will probably earn a lot more. And even I remember when I was at university, one professor who was quite highly famed professor who retrained as a plumber. He left the professional job as a professor to become a plumber. So some of the skills that we don't see as highly rated or as recognized very well, they see them here. They take advantage of them, and it's all about nation building. And one of the advantage of the first world countries, they integrate it very well into the country. And once you're settled in fully, of course, as long as you comply, then you're fine. You don't have to leave if you don't want to leave, because you're a regular citizen. You are contributing. You're adding value, and that's the most important thing. So, in as much as I believe the country's got a quota they want to meet, they might not announce it, but at the same time, just be a legal abiding citizen. I think it will work very well for you.
Interesting. And I must say that I believe that there are those who will be looking forward to seeing you, perhaps having you back home after a while. Are you looking forward to coming back?
I told someone yesterday, I said, there's no place as good as Kwara State. Of course, I would love to go back to Nigeria. I tend to visit as often as I can. Nigeria is always going to be my home. I still maintain a deep relationship to Nigeria. I'm not scared of returning to Nigeria at all. They haven't sent me away. I think our skills, regardless of how, I mean, my journey just came like any other person. Oh, I'm only going to go there for a few years. Okay, then I was in my teenage, but I wasn't very much my formative years. My journey came as any other person. Quite fortunate for me, there was no baggage or anything at all then. And I decided, I wasn't going to stay there for 3 years. And 3 years turned to 25 years right now. So, but again, this, home is good, home is sweet. Unfortunately, or maybe should I say fortunate, both ways, I've formed a base here now. I've got relatives, I've got deep friends in here. And, but yeah, home is still my home.
Okay. Now, let's just paint a picture of the situation of immigrants, especially Nigerian immigrants in the UK. Let's have a better sense, a better picture of what it is like. Because there was an interview that, I don't know if it is BBC or one of this leading media organization carried out, where there was an investigation and they saw some Nigerians, leaving, looking for jobs. Some were living in very horrible conditions.
26 in a row.
And they were saying that they could not return home because they had sold everything. And the information they got, it seemed they were deceived, basically, and they sold everything just to move to the UK. Perhaps this is a good time to educate those who are also looking forward to coming to the UK, how they need to plan their lives, because you mentioned earlier that you have to pay for everything, and also the matter of the situation of immigrants in the country.
Oh, absolutely. I think I saw the clip which was flying about on social media. It was a 10-minute long clip, and yes, you're right. This is a country. I remember talking to my father when I was younger, when I traveled abroad, and said, "Oh, how come when a lot of people do travel and they do not return?" And I said, people have the wrong conception. The minute you are traveling, everyone has got an expiry date. Whether you are, the minute you're traveling, whether you want to go see your family or not, except it says indefinite. Whether you're a student visa, it's got an expiry date. A lot of people do get the visas and they just assume that's the end. Yes, it could be a route to to permanent residency, but you don't want to burn your bridges too fast. I've seen people do that. It's quite unfortunate because the two well-known schemes that we all know, which is the study route, or you want to come in here as a healthcare and some of the stories are depressing. You know, I've got friends who talked about, you know, he goes in, he leaves his emotions at home because, you know, today he's burying somebody or maybe two or three people. You know, he's doing the worst of things. You know, he speaks the best of English. He's got the best grammar, and he's got a degree which he has to leave behind. And you know, he's right here living in deplorable conditions. Sometimes he talks about how, you know, his back is constantly aching, and some of the things he can't even describe. You know, in the past, you know, he's holding two jobs. He goes for one, finishes at night, and goes for the other. Stays in the car sometimes. So sometimes he goes to work on Friday, doesn't return home till Monday, and you know, he doesn't want to take the annoyance on his kids. So in a way, he has to start rethinking. But you know, but he keeps giving with this caveat. He say, you know what, Gbenga, but it's still nice. I still like it because practically in Nigeria, I was actually begging to make a living. So it goes two ways. But at the same time, you don't want to leave. You don't want to burn your bridges. Of recently, you know, we're talking about the visas which they grant some people, a lot of them actually come. And now this is the story which a lot of people are not talking about. So these employers, you know, a lot of people are paying a lot of money, and I believe this is now actually coming out now. Is a bubble which is actually been bubbling out, and the Home Office getting aware of it. So you get a visa, you're attached to a certain company. These companies tend to get a lot of money from you, which they shouldn't actually collect at all. And once they get this money and you come abroad, guess what? They don't give you enough shifts, but you want to survive because you got to pay bills. I mean, apart from the bills, we're talking about so many taxes. There's practically a taxation to watch your television. It's just that bad. So these people haven't got the right jobs, but their visa said, you know, you are restricted to this company. But this company is not giving them enough job opportunities, enough hours. So that means they're gonna have to find some another way to survive. For which, if they do, they are breaching their visa terms. And if they do that, of course, that means it might not just get renewed. And a lot of people have paid. And some people come here, they realize, you know what? Like I said a few minutes ago, the streets of London is not paved with gold. It's not just what I thought it will be, but I want to return. Unfortunately, I've sold everything. There's the shame. There's nothing I'm going to return to when I return to Nigeria, or if and when I return to Nigeria. There's that shame. Where do I start from? So the streets are not paved with gold. There's so many horror stories. You had people who have to retrain as something else. But again, your visa is actually, you got this clause there. You cannot claim. There's no recourse to public fund. You've got to pay your ways, pay the visa routes, etc. So ultimately, it boils down to you. A lot of people think, you know what, I've made this mistake. How do I do? And I've had a few friends of mine who literally, after 20 years, they haven't even been able to get a residence permit in the country, and they had to go back home and say, you know what, even I'm not deported, I'm just going back, and I do not care, no regrets at all.
So, Gbenga, you already said it that the London roads are not painted with gold. I want to understand the drive for Nigerians who are, hurrying, jumping to the UK, other countries, especially the UK. Is it that are there some perks that the UK government give to, foreign citizens or the students and other countries that other countries don't? Does it look like, we have more people moving to the UK than other countries? Like, is it really worth it?
I wish I could tell you the pecs. I think I'll be a billionaire right now if there's a peg, if there are pecs at all, and I'm able to live in that. No, there's absolutely nothing you get for coming to the country.
Gbenga, unfortunately, we need to wrap up this conversation now. But the message, I believe that our viewers have gotten the message, the bottom line of everything that we have been saying. We must thank you, Gbenga Onifade, the International Affairs Analyst, for your time on the program. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
All right.